Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We call it Baltimore Positive. We're positively into a weekend here where the Orioles are home, but I'm not sure that it matters. The Ravens are in Minnesota playing more football that could get more guys that might be starters hurt. We're going to be at Coco's on Wednesday doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. I'll have the Ravens scratch-offs to give away. We had a great show at Fishmonger's Daughter. I'm wearing my Fadley shirt because I haven't had it on in a while. I do not have a Fishmonger's Daughter shirt, but I will have one soon. We had some fun over there this week. All of our friends at GBMC, also Farnan and Dermer, Zach Dermer came out. We had our old pal Dennis Kolatzis came out and visited with us, and Bill Cole stopped by. We did some work with the Catonsville Emergency Assistance folks over there as well. And whew, I thought the baseball season was picking up, Luke. It felt like on Tuesday we were going to play some big games. And I'm going to tell you what, I don't know where they're going to get up from this. I don't know how Elias is getting up. I don't know they're going to play baseball next April, May, June, whatever. I'm going to be doing our 35th anniversary, doing rock and roll around here while they're holding up spring training in February and March and April next year. After the Ravens parade, of course, with Lamar, and he gets extended. But this Yankee series and these 3 games and 14 hits in 3 games and just the Yankees kind of put them in a sleeper hole and put them nighty-night. They're 6 under now. You'll say mathematically blah, 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 and 79 wins is going to win the win the wild card race and whatever.
It
But
might.
yeah, it might. Go ahead.
No, I
Yeah,
mean
I mean,
it's.
you've been out there the last 3 nights. I want to give you all the oxygen because I've only wasted time on television watching this. You've actually gone to witness it.
I'm not going to act like I'm surprised. I wasn't nearly as enthusiastic about the Tampa Bay series, while fully acknowledging it was a really good series. It was a really good series, and every team in baseball plays some really good series over the course of 162. So, but I'll give you a stat. Beyond talking about the number of hits, the number of runs scored, the numbers with runners in scoring position, about 3. They got the leadoff runner on in an inning 3 times in the entire series.
27 innings.
27 innings, they got the leadoff runner on 3 times. And one of those was Dylan Beavers with the home run last night, on Thursday night. So let's use a football analogy. The best offenses, as much as we tend to focus on third down offense, what do I always say? And what have you said it a lot last year?
I learned this with Lamar. It's Lamar's lesson to me.
You need to be good on first down, right? When you are constantly no outs or 1 out, nobody on, that's akin to Derrick Henry running into the line and stuffed on first down,
as opposed to the 4-out innings that Gunnar Henderson keeps giving the other team.
Oh yeah, sure. Or you throw an incomplete pass on first down. It's like being in 2nd and 10, and we know the numbers.
If you give me 5 downs, I'll make first downs, right?
Sure,
but if you only give me 3, I got a problem, right?
So they didn't really have all that many opportunities. I mean, Pete Alonso had 2 of their 4 hits. As I mentioned, Dylan Beavers, the one instance where they did it on Thursday night, it was a solo home run. Now, I'm not begrudging Beavers for hitting a home run there, but it just speaks to how many batters came up with not just no one in scoring position, but no one on base, period. It's really, really difficult to mount much offense when you're in 1 out, nobody on base.
Hard to hit a 3-run homer with nobody on base.
Exactly. I mean, it sounds like, like we're being obtuse here, but it's very true. So they just didn't hit the ball at all. And I mean, look, the Yankees
They throw the ball well,
extremely well. This is a Yankees team that doesn't have Aaron Judge or Cody Bellinger or Giancarlo Stanton, right? I mean, and they haven't had Stanton all year, but point is,
it's only $75 million a player, right?
Right. They are way less than full strength right now. But when you pitch like they pitch, and Garrett Cole was really good on Thursday night, I'll give him full credit. This is what
there's
you
another
have.
40 million.
And then when you have a situation like the top of the 3rd inning where Bradish gives up a couple hits to start the inning, bottom of the order, and then Gunnar Henderson off a play that Jackson Holliday made a really nice play to get the force, or what should have been the force, at second. And that's a play where Gunnar Henderson just needs to recognize, I'm not going to get Jose Caballero at first base. I'm not going to double him up here. I'm just not. I mean, he's too fast, and that play was a little bit too long developing to expect that. Get to sure out. Make the catch, put it in your pocket, and then you live to fight the rest of the inning. Instead, it leads to a run and no outs, and then the Yankees score two more runs after that. And when your offense is struggling to score and you're going up against one of the best pitchers in baseball, 3-0 in the top of the third inning, it's not over at that point, but you're in a hole. You're in a pretty substantial hole already. So,
And then you make the first out on the first pitch of the next inning
yeah, I
or
mean, it's just,
whatever,
yeah.
and you're in the hole. I mean,
Well,
they've
and the
had
other,
really quick innings when they come up for their Ikes.
sure. And the other factor that was at work there specifically on Thursday night, that inning, it's not just that Bradish gives up 3 runs and two of those are unearned then. He threw 38 pitches in that inning. I mean, that completely transforms the first couple innings where it's looking like, maybe this is a night where Kyle Bradish can go 7 innings for you. Because we've also talked about the current makeup of the bullpen and how guys are miscast, and
And
you've
also
got
the
guys.
current makeup of Kyle Bradish, if this is going to be a playoff team and their money invested in him, where all the
Sure,
announcers who are tied to the team are all talking about we've shut him down in September and like you know protect him, protect his arm and all that. Well, they're 6 under 500 right now. They shut him down now. Yeah, like I mean, I don't. I'm not waving the white flag for them, but it starts to feel like this is the week that's going to happen. Yeah, this was the week where I went back and looked at our own website and the
yeah.
way we talked about this at the beginning of the week, and really this 10-game stand beginning last week, and they got off to such a good start. Now it's upside down already, and exactly what you suspected might happen, what I feared would happen, but was optimistic about keeping the season alive. So
Yeah.
we'd have games around here when before the Ravens play, that there wouldn't be that lull around Labor Day where they're 9 under and it's just over and you're waiting on final cuts and we're trying to figure out who the center of the Ravens is on September 3rd, which is still 10, 12 days from now, right? Like I just thought there'd be 2 more weeks of season. I don't think anybody's staying up late and Oakland, Sacramento, Las Vegas, wherever the hell they want to play next week. The Redwoods, they can play wherever they want next Friday, Saturday. Nobody's staying awake with this next weekend. I think they're done.
I mean, maybe so. I'll continue to say the math is going to say otherwise, probably, and unless they really like, if they get swept this weekend, if they, if you have a 2-7 homestand on the heels of an 0-6 or a 1-5 kind of homestand, then yeah, I'm not going to sit here. But
Dude, they get swept at home by the Yankees in late
I understand,
August on the
Nestor.
on
I
the cusp.
understand that.
Like that to me is it's poignant almost, right? Like
I understand, but
it's
they're
sort
not
of like the
eliminating the
way
third
it
wild
should
card
be
spot.
for Mike Elias. This is the way he should go out.
But I'm also going to say they're not eliminating the third wild card spot in the American League.
I just don't think they're going to get up and give a fight now. I don't think they're going to get the 500. You know what I mean? I don't think they're going to do that thing that we thought they were capable of doing 4 or 5 days ago. This Yankees thing was very telling to me.
Okay.
And I think
I mean,
telling
I was
anybody that's
skeptical
watched
4 or 5 days
the franchise
ago.
for 30 years too. So,
I mean, I was
I
skeptical.
agree, dude.
Yeah. I mean,
I already taught. Look, I've kissed your butt every time the Yankees have beaten the Orioles. So this is 3 days in a row that I'm saying you're right. You were right last
I'm just
week.
saying, like, I'm not surprised by this. Like, this is who they've been all year long. They get to 2 games under 500. I mean, they've done it 5 times since early June, where they get to 2 games under 500. And what they've done now, those 5 times, I'll recite it once again. They lost 4 straight. They lost 3 of the next 4. They lost the next 2. They lost 3 straight, and now they've lost 4 straight. Right? I mean, this has just been the pattern. Now, what's going to happen now? They will probably inch their way closer to 500 again, just enough to maybe kind of sort of pique your interest. It might not be as
We have
dramatic.
to talk about them next Monday because they won 6 in a row in St. Louis and in Sac. I'll be happy to do that on
Sure.
Labor Day. I'll work on Labor Day morning with you if you want
I
to do that.
I will basically say I won't be surprised whatsoever to get that if they're back to 2 games under 500 at some point in the not too distant future. And then you know what I think will happen? They'll fall back a few games because it's who they are. For as much as people have used the word inconsistent in describing them, they've actually been remarkably consistent in their inconsistency, if that makes sense. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. But all these other teams stink also. I mean, it's where we are. And right now, Minnesota, who was swept by Philadelphia last weekend and looked pretty bad in doing so, they're leading the wild card picture. I mean, it's just none of it really makes any sense. None of it's terribly inspiring. And oh, by the way, Minnesota's going to San Diego to play a Padres team that has been pretty on fire of late. So how's that going to go for them? I mean, it's what we keep talking about though. Any one of these teams that are still hanging around look good, look like they have a pulse, play really well for 4 or 5 days, and then they just fall back to the pack. And I'm guessing that pattern's going to continue. I'm guessing that the Orioles aren't truly done in the mathematical sense. I'm guessing they're going to have one more run in them that people are going to be talking about them in the terms that they did this past Monday. But that said, do I think they're going to break through? No. As I told you, I've been out on this team for about 2 months now, but it's where it is. Now, the issue is more specifically the remaining schedule, the fact that they're going on another long road trip, the fact that they still have games against the AL East and they have not played well against the AL East. And oh, yeah, you've got a Toronto team that has suddenly come to life, a Toronto team that sold off parts at the trade deadline, although they did more of a sell and buy combination. So, we could keep talking about the wild card race. They're last place in their own division right now by a game and a half going into this. So, I mean, we'll see. Maybe they are truly done, and they lose 2 out of 3 this weekend, and they're about to have a 2-7 road trip against one good team and two other teams that are certainly nothing special. But that said, I mean, this is a Yankees team that was at less than full strength and has really struggled to score runs at times, really over the entire summer since Judge went out of the lineup. And not that the Yankees, they weren't scoring 10 a game against them, but it wasn't good enough. It's that simple. And as far as Thursday night, even though the defense let them down big time in the third inning, I was disappointed in Kyle Bradish. Kyle Bradish still could have gotten out of that third inning without giving up 2 more runs, and he gave up the 2 solo home runs in the sixth inning. Right? I mean, when Beavers had hit the home run to close the gap, and then he gives up 2 home
The
runs.
sixth inning homers felt like fatigue. It felt like
it probably was, but well, but he's a guy that you just invested in. He's one of your, he's supposed to be your ace. That was a case where you needed to go out there and hang a zero on the board, and instead he gives up a home run on the very first pitch of the sixth inning. So I was disappointed in Bradish too. I'm not giving him a total pass. I mean, the Gunnar error was very critical. There's no doubt about that. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not going to feel sorry for Kyle Bradish in the way that I have for Shane Baz for so much of the season, where he's had these starts where I think he pitched very, very well. And Bradish is having a good year. Like, it's not like he's been bad. I just didn't think he was very good on Thursday night. And his post game comments at his locker, you could tell he wasn't very happy with how he pitched. He said, look, some errors are going to happen sometimes. Like, that doesn't give you license to just completely fall apart after that. And again, it was a 38 pitch inning that he still had opportunities to get out of it. Even after that, there pitched 5 more batters in that inning, and still gave up 3 more hits after that. So, it's just it's another example of this team not being good enough. They're not awful, but they're not good. I mean, just point blank, they're not good. And beating the Rays in a series, or going out to Dodger Stadium and winning a series, I mean, those aren't calling cards of a good team. Those are calling cards of the ebbs and flow of a 162 game season. I mean, this team has some stretches where they play better baseball. That's true of every team. Like, last year's team had some stretches where they played well. Last year's team was worse than this year's team. The rebuild era. Now, not as many of them, because the rebuild era type teams are especially terrible. But even those teams have some stretches where, they win a few series against some good teams. I mean, it's not like football, right? I mean, there's a lot of variance that goes into it. And I've said it, as cliche as it sounds, if you really look at how they've profiled, this team has done it all year, where it is 1 or 2 steps forward, immediately followed by 2 or 3 steps back. And that's just been the pattern. And that's why they've been under 500 since early May. Like, it's not any like big secret. They're not good enough to sustain success for more than a series, a week. They had a 2-week stretch in late May and early June, and every single time they fall back to being this, which is the mediocre to slightly mediocre to below average, not slightly below average ball club.
He is Luke Jones. We are covering baseball for a little while. We got some football this weekend as well. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery in partnership with GBMC and our partners at Farner and Dermer. They are the comfort guys. Zach Dermer was out with us this week. We'll be at Coco's next Wednesday, celebrating my Best of Baltimore award and reinvention. I'm going to reinvent the tale with Max Weiss and Ron Cassie on Wednesday, as well as have some crab cakes and hopefully a little coconut shrimp and a Greek salad as well. Um, I looked at the standings, like
Mhm.
right, like National League, teams that are coming on a little bit. The Cubs are coming on. Padres are going to make the playoffs, right? We know the Dodgers, Yankees, Rays, all of this. Uh, this next couple of weeks for them and the somnambulance after the weekend of going to St. Louis, going out to I was keep wanting to say Oakland, but Sacramento,
Yeah.
whatever it is, to Athletics, the former home of Charlie Finley. Um, at what point do we start looking at some of these players and when you and I start saying, where's Beavers for next year? Who's on the team next year? And we can't even talk about next year without talking about labor, really, unless we're doing fanboy booja.
No.
Yeah, like literally like sizing this up to say what are they trying to do except quote unquote win tonight? But like the evaluative part of Gunnar Henderson, of the guys they don't have under contract, like wrapping Bradish and Boz up in bubble wrap and making sure that their arms don't fall off. Okay, got a lot of money in them. Pete Alonso, a lot of money in him. Basayo, let's get him right. He's young, get him moving around a little bit. Let's hit him, hit the ball. I saw he had a warning tracker the other night. Hit the ball 404 feet, just dead center.
Hmm.
So I'm buying into whenever they play baseball again, whenever that is, May,
Sure.
June, maybe March, but probably not. I mean, I haven't met anybody that's you're not optimistic. I haven't met anybody that's optimistic about this labor
Right.
situation. And, I saw Kyle Goon's takedown of Rubenstein. I mean, the people that run this place right now, and I throw it at Katie because she was so disingenuous with me that I don't mind saying her name, being an out of town person that has nothing to do with this organization and being the people around here who've supported this organization and speaking to someone whose logo might be on the screen, whose group had $120,000 in tickets that they've just decided, nah. I'm wondering how many nahs they're going to be on the business side. But then there's the baseball side that you focus on, and we talk so much about. Well, the Rutschman deal was going to lead to, Aronson or Evanson and these other guys that might come up and pitch, might be a part of the Red Sox thing. Maybe this is the Scott McGregor, Rick Dempsey deal that'll spur them on 3 years from now to say, look at what we got for Rutschman, and Elias might be running the Cubs by then, right? Time passes in baseball for all of these guys. But the younger players and what's going to be on the field next year, you alluded to the outfield problem. Dude, they have a lot of problems. They don't know whether Holiday's a second baseman, a shortstop, or a third baseman. Pretty sure Henderson's not going to ever be a great shortstop. Pretty sure he's not going to be here, not going to sign here. The catcher's already gone. Pretty sure Basayo's not really a catcher. Like, not the guy you won 130 games the next 5 years, even though you paid him. You don't think you have the catching thing solved, probably at this point. Man, man, a man, a man, a man. I watch the lineup every night and say Leody Taveras is not a part of the future. So it's one thing to sell some of this stuff as prospects were coming up. I don't know what Kobe Mayo is at this point. I don't know if Westberg's ever coming back at this point, right? Like, I look at all of these guys, and Batista, you're trying to figure out whether he might have 8 innings in him 3 weeks from now. What is your evaluative part of this, especially if you're going to get fired if you're Mike Elias or the sport's going to shut down? What are we going to be seeing? I was going to say once this thing gets really sloppy, but if they go 9 under this weekend because they can't get out of their way, you and I are reading rights on them Monday morning, or they go 1 and 2, whatever they go. They're not, whatever they are. We better start talking about what all these relief pitchers coming in. Who's going to be a part of this when they win again? Who are the pile divers as we see it?
I mean, I think that's a fair question. I mean, for me, I mean, look, it's hard for me to not begin with the state of the outfield. I mean, this is not a major league contending club outfield. Like, it's just not.
They don't have a
That
starter out there for next year, if as I look at it,
I
right? You
mean,
wouldn't want to say, well, we're going to pencil Beavers in. We're going to pencil Cat. They don't have anything to pencil in, like at all. They don't even have a
I
number
mean,
two
I,
pencil.
I'd really like to see a version of Dylan Beavers who homered back-to-back nights. I'd like to see a version of Dylan Beavers that plays really well over these final 5 weeks of the season. And you can say you're writing him in pencil, let's say, at a corner outfield spot, but he's got to show more and show it more consistently than he has this year. And obviously he had an oblique and he was a rookie this year, and I'm not going to be too harsh on him. At the same time, the idea that you're just going to hand him a starting job unconditionally is not, that's where that's one of the many reasons they're in the spot that they're in right now, right? Counting too much on the young core. But the rest of this outfield picture, I mean, Colton Cowser's a fourth outfielder. I think it's apparent at this point in time. I mean, maybe if he's traded and he goes somewhere else and some other team gets their hands on him in terms of rebuilding him, approaching the hitting in a different way for him, maybe that makes a difference. But the idea that you're going to trot him out there on any kind of a regular basis, other than because you need his defense, is not a plan. And to your point, I mean, God bless him. Leody Taveras had a really good April. Go look at what his numbers have been since then. And this is a guy that's getting regular daily playing time. I mean, it speaks to where they are. I mean, for an organization that for a while there felt like they drafted nothing but college hitters and more specifically outfielders, quite a few of them. So it's just, yeah, I kind of look at that picture. Enrique Bradfield at AAA. One, he's had trouble staying healthy himself. Two, I'm not sure there's enough development there to think that he's going to be anything more than a fourth outfielder type. So you have some redundancy there between Cowser and him in a big picture sense. So yeah, I kind of look at this thing and say, Tyler O'Neill's going to be in the last year of his contract. I mean, Tyler O'Neill's been a better hitter over the last couple months, but you're not getting what you thought you were going to get for 3 years, $49.5 million,
Well, you're
right?
going
I
to have
mean,
a roster spot on him because you're not.
yeah, for at least the time, is there a move to be made where you pay down, you trade a bad contract for another 1 year left into the deal? That's plausible. Not likely, probably not, but it's plausible at least if you take on, some other position, someone has a bad contract and you say, hey, we kind of like this guy. Some other team says, hey, we have a need for someone like Tyler O'Neill, especially if it rids us of this contract, right? So, but it's tough. I mean, the outfield, like who's going to be the pillar? At least with some of the other issues that you laid out there, and they obviously have other issues. It's why they're below 500 and have been for 4 months. But at least in the infield, you have Pete Alonso, right? And even though Jackson Holliday's had a disappointing August on the heels of a great July, he's going to be, I assume, unless they move him to the outfield. And look, that could be honestly a talking point. I know there have been people that have opined that Jackson Holliday probably make a pretty good center fielder. Probably not, I'm not saying he's going to be the best in baseball, but have kind of wondered if he would be better in the outfield than as an infielder because, that doesn't really show great range as a second baseman, let alone any thought that you'd move him back to shortstop if and when you trade Gunnar
Well,
Henderson.
the word is he's a natural shortstop, and if they felt better about his
I don't know if
shortstop,
he's a
he'd be
natural
playing it.
shortstop. Yeah, I mean,
They would move Henderson to third
he
base, and
he's a
especially
natural.
when they had third base open.
I would say he's a natural shortstop in the way that he was drafted as a shortstop, but Kobe Mayo was drafted as a shortstop. Ryan Mountcastle was drafted as a shortstop, right? I mean, most most hitters are drafted as shortstop, center fielder, or catcher up the middle, right? I mean, like that's just a scouting thing, right? Because if someone's a shortstop, the thought is, you can move them elsewhere, right? They've already moved.
Well, shortstop, it's not any further in the big leagues than it is in the minor leagues or the little leagues. Well, little league, but making the
I just
throw
don't
from
think.
shortstop in the hole,
Yeah,
whether you're doing it in Charlotte or whether you're doing it in Salisbury or the Montana Penal League, it's the same throw. So the defensive part of fielding ground balls that are hit hard and moving around and being athletic and like I don't know about Holiday at shortstop. I haven't seen him. I've seen him at second. I'm with you. I'm like,
I
It
mean, I just
doesn't
don't
look
think he
like
has
that.
the
It
arm
doesn't look
for it.
natural to me hit second base. It looks natural to me because he's smallish. He's not a 6'7" lumbering. Maybe I've never stood next to him, but he feels small to me. Like when I look at him on television next to the rest of
He's
these
not
giants.
tall, but I mean, he's got. I wouldn't say he's tiny. He's not tall in the way that Cal Ripken 6'4" was 6'4" or
But his
is 6'4".
natural build would be more like Brian Roberts than like Cal Ripken,
That's yeah.
right? Yeah,
I,
yeah, but
I
more
would
like a second base build.
especially if we're talking about middle of his career, Brian Roberts, wink, wink.
Look, Louis
But
was 154 pounds like me and 5'8" and played shortstop. That was 100 years ago.
yeah,
You know what I
but
mean? Shortstops are supposed to look like Kobe Maya. They're supposed to look like Gunnar Henry, maybe 6'4", 6'5". Like
um,
that's what Earl Weaver would
I
say.
mean,
But to
more so
me,
than the past, sure. But he
second
just doesn't have
base.
the arm. Like
Fair
the
enough.
arm
Fair
strength.
enough.
I mean, I just here.
Then how was he a shortstop in college? You know,
I'll give you.
that's what I'm
Well,
asking you.
no, I mean that.
But he was
Well,
a kid when they
that's
drafted
what
him.
I just
Yeah,
told you
yeah,
though. Like
yeah.
all these guys get drafted as shortstops, like, because when they're in high school or maybe not quite as much in college, but still even in college, they're still the best player, right? The
Right.
best player plays shortstop. So in the way that so many NFL players today, you'd find many, many, many of them played quarterback in high school. At least it might not have been their primary position, but they played it at some point. Like that's kind of how it works, for skill guys. But I think with Holiday, I'll give you a perfect comp. Look at how Jackson Holiday turns the double play and throws it back to first compared to Jonathan Scope. Jonathan Scope had an absolute rifle. Now, he didn't stay at shortstop because he was slow and just the footwork was not indicative of someone that was going to play shortstop. But there was never any question about Jonathan Scope's arm. I mean, that he could absolutely rifle that thing from second base. I mean, whether it was Machado at short or JJ Hardy at short, you saw them turn the double play. I mean, it was a thing of beauty. But a big part of that was Scope just had an absolute rifle of an arm. Jackson Holiday doesn't have that kind of an arm. Now, that said, because it's funny because we brought it up, would that arm play in the outfield? I mean, good enough. Like he's not going to have you're not talking about someone with a 60, on the scouting scale, not having a 60 throwing arm, but I think it could be good enough. Or you do a prudent thing for once and you just say, no, we're committed to him playing second base. And we think he continues to get reps there. This kid's had a really bumpy start to his major league career between the idea that he was called up at age 20 and in hindsight, he wasn't ready, and then having the hamate bone this year, right? I mean, I still have some optimism and hope for Jackson Holiday becoming a better player than what we've seen. Now, is that ever going to live up to 1-1 MVP kind of performance?
Few do.
Probably not.
Few do, right?
But right, exactly. But do I think there's another level for Jackson Holiday to hit? I think that's very plausible. Because again, he is only 22 years old. We're not talking about, Adley Rutschman, who's going to be
I think he
entering
can be
age
an
29.
all-star at second base. We don't believe that's going to happen at shortstop or third base, given his bat.
Yeah, I mean,
like literally, right?
I mean, I'd hate to move him to third base, right? I mean, you're talking about already someone who's been moved around, already someone who didn't get a lot of reps at second
Well,
base in the minor leagues.
they've already done that. They've already played him. You know what I mean?
I mean,
They're already
they
jerking him
dabbled very,
around.
very little, but I mean, like in terms of like suddenly saying, oh, well, we're committed to him playing third base, right? I don't see that. I think he's a right side of the infield, he's second baseman, or I would explore the possibility of seeing what it looks like in the outfield. And that would be an off-season project, right? Not something you do on September 13th. That would be, hey, Jackson, we want you to work out as an outfielder all winter, and we'll see what it looks like in spring training. But at least going back to the original point as far as assessing the roster and where you're going in at least next season, at least you have some semblance of pieces in the infield. The outfield just feels very bare in terms of what you like, what projection you have there, all of that, right? I mean, how telling is it, Nestor, that Heston Kjerstad's still sitting at AAA right now? I mean, you're telling me there's not opportunity for him, and it speaks to me that they just don't see a guy that's a legitimate major league outfielder. Now, defensively, I mean, I don't like his defense at all, but even offensively, you look at his numbers at AAA for a league where the offense has, it's been a little offense heavy. you know, his numbers are very unimpressive. I mean, he's fine. Like he hasn't had a horrible year at Norfolk, but the fact that they haven't even brought him up, and instead guys like Christian Franklin and Leody Taveras continue to be on this roster. I mean, I think it speaks volumes about where they feel he is. But that's the thing. You kind of look at it and say, okay, what exactly is in their system that's really, really close? And even if it's guys that are further along, is it anyone that you're really going to count on? Right. So that's where I kind of began. I just look at the outfield and I'm just like, man, for all the promise, all the talk that there was about the outfield a few years back, going back to the latter years of Hayes, Mullen,
I
Santander.
was going to say, yeah, that class was supposed to be usurped by
Yeah. I mean,
Kauser, Kerstadt, right? That's what this was supposed to be.
Beavers. I mean, and again, Beavers. I'm not ready to throw in the towel on
And the
Beavers. Let me
kid
be
that they
very
drafted
clear.
that was a speedster that
Enrique
is
Bradfield.
right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, they just drafted Eric Booth. I mean, he's not going to be ready for at least a couple years, right? I mean, Nate George has been hurt, slash sick all year. Okay, there's like Irish, but again, I'm not looking at guys that are going to be anchors for you out there at least in the near future. So you look at that. The rotation, I mean, look, my disappointment in Bradish Thursday night aside, I mean, I'm still excited about Kyle Bradish. I still think Shane Baz with more representative run support and a better defense behind him would be much closer to 13-4 than 4-13 this year. I mean, I think Shane Baz has been solid. He's got a 4 ERA. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's been amazing, but I think he's been pretty good. And I do think his team around him has not helped him at all. It's been a little more disproportional in terms of the lack of run support and good defense behind him. So you have those two. Brandon Young, is Brandon Young getting tired, wearing down at this point in the season? I think that's a fair question. I don't mean that in the way that they need to shut him down today, but I do think it's something you need to be mindful of the last month of the season, at least be really looking at it and asking him how he's feeling and looking at the biomechanic data and all of that. But, are you going to re-sign Trevor Rogers? If not, are you going to go out and get another pitcher? Are you going to continue to try to go to this well of signing veteran pitchers basically when it's too late, right? I mean, Chris Bassett's the latest example of that. They gave Chris Bassett a lot of money to not do very much for them this year. Same with Zach Eflin, right? So are you going to continue to go to that well, or is there going to be a bigger move made as a starting pitcher? Or do you look at some of the arms that you do have at AAA and even at AA and say, we don't want to make a long-term commitment because we like those guys? Or do you go out and trade a couple of those guys for a legit outfielder, right? Because that's something you really need. So point is, and I think you can tell, and I'm kind of bouncing around here. I haven't even talked about the bullpen, but the bullpen is an issue or a question or an area to address every offseason. And I think that's, in fairness to the Orioles, that's most teams, if we're being honest. But point is, they got a heck of a lot of work to do, and that's bringing it back to the big picture question in terms of what is going to happen with the CBA and with the lockout, and when you're actually going to be able to build a roster, and what's going to change potentially with the CBA in terms of years of club control or rules and how you're, even able to handle your own, let alone going out and signing or acquiring other talent. So, yeah, they've got a lot of work to do. And that's not to say the cupboard's entirely bare, because it's not, but they've got to figure that out. I mean, Samuel Basayo, I love Basayo. I think the upside for the bat is very evident. But what is the catching situation going to look like? I think on paper, the fact that they went out and got Carlos Narvaez, I thought that was actually a nice piece that they were able to get within the bigger scope of what they got for Adley Rutschman. And if you look at Narvaez, I mean, last year he actually did some nice things with the bat. Like, go look at his numbers. He swung the bat okay last year. If you can get him back to that, then your catching situation actually doesn't look awful, right? By any means. Still questions as far as how much
You can't have your
Basayo's going to
Sunday catcher hitting 178 though,
right.
right?
Well, of
Yeah.
course, but that's what I'm saying in terms of what. Let me pull it up because I don't want to just go off of memory, but I want to point this out. Like Carlos Narvaez, who is 27, he's younger than Adley Rutschman. Last year, go back to 2025. He caught 118 games for the Red Sox, 446 plate appearances. He hit 241 with 15 home runs, a 306 on base percentage, and a 419 slug. I mean, he had a 726 OPS. That was league average offense, which you don't get from many catchers around baseball. So I'm not saying he's going to be that, but is there a version of him that's in between what he's been this year and last year? And if that's the case, then you might have a combination of him and Basayo. Basayo's not going to catch 130 games a year, right? I think this is whoever it's going to be with him. It's much more of a 1 and 1A kind of situation, not a 1 and a 2, right? This isn't. I'm trying to even think what Matt Wieters and Taylor Teagarden, right? Where Matt Wieters is
So
catching
you see Basayo as 108 games of catching,
or
21
90
games at
or
first
something like
base,
yeah.
and 30 games at
Probably
DH.
a lot of DH, right? I mean, I'll say this. I mean, we say it in passing because Pete
But you want to see
Alonso,
him play 154 games next year,
yeah, yeah,
in and out of catching and playing,
which which the
and hit 31 home runs, maybe hit 256, right?
and the thing is, if he's going to play 150 games because you want his bat in the lineup, that can't be 130 as a catcher, right? We've seen that story too many times. Adley Rutschman wore down, Matt Wieters wore down, right? If you want to keep that bat, which is that's his biggest attraction, right? I mean, at least with Adley Rutschman or even what Matt Wieters evolved into being, the defense really was prominent, right? I mean, Adley Rutschman, the biggest thing he had going for him this year, other than the fact that he had a big April, was his defense was way better than it had been the last couple years. So that's still a big part of the calculus as far as what his valuation is. Whereas Basayo is it's the bat first. So if you want to feature that and keep that prominent and keep him as fresh as can be, then it's probably going to look more like him catching 80 games, him playing some first base and getting Pete Alonso off his feet. And by the way, we didn't talk about it because, it wasn't the highlight of the game, but Basayo played some really good defense at first base the other night. That looked good. Like it was funny. Albertaz was asked about that, and he said when he talked to him in spring training, when he was getting to know him as a player, that he asked, so how do you feel about first base? Is that a spot where you feel like you really need a lot of work on the regular to stay sharp there if the need arises? Or are you comfortable to just like go there? And he kind of said he can just play it, right? I mean, it feels like that's kind of a natural fit for him at first base as far as his abilities. Now, again, that doesn't mean you're going to banish Pete Alonso to the DH spot, but I do think as Pete Alonso gets older here over the next few years,
He's the other first baseman. Yeah.
you probably behooves him and your team to DH him a little bit more often.
Which is why you don't want a team full of Kobe Mayos, right? Like literally.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to the Ross. Well, don't forget Ryan Mountcastle was supposed to be on this team too, So that's where yes, and that's where I come back to the big picture questions as far as does this current regime have the ability to put together a roster that makes sense? And I really question whether they do, quite frankly. I mean, how about the fact right now, and this is just more of a footnote for the moment, but right now, Nestor, the Orioles do not have a backup second baseman on their roster. They optioned out Jeremiah Jackson, and I get it. Jeremiah Jackson hasn't hit since April, right? I'm not saying in isolation that I disagree with that, but think about this. As they're playing the Rays this weekend, if Jackson Holiday turns his ankle and has to leave the game, who's playing second base? I mean, is it Encarnacion Strand, who's never played second base in professional baseball? Is it Kobe Mayo? Is it Leody Taveras, like how he played third base in Anaheim a couple months ago? Now, that's a one game thing, right? I mean, if something happens, you You bite the bullet that night. You do whatever you have to do to get through the game, and then
Well,
you
when they put their
adjust.
starters out there for
But
defense, it doesn't look great. So
well,
just
and
putting
that's
somebody out there that's never
it's
played
just
third
the
base, I don't
latest.
know.
It's just one. It's the latest about of the punchline that is how little they value defense. But it also just speaks to how crazy this roster construction is. Now, Blaze Alexander should be back in the next 10 days or so. Uh, he solves that problem, right? Because Blaze can play 6 different spots. So you get your super utility guy back, then you can do that. But right now, they don't have a backup second baseman. And oh, yeah, Jackson Holliday is the backup shortstop if something happens to Gunnar Henderson. So if Gunnar Henderson turns his ankle, you slide Jackson Holliday over to short. And then you're still asking, who's my second baseman going to be for the rest of the game? So, I mean, that's just that's
Sloppy.
craziness, right? I mean, that's just, and I understand why they want to do it because it makes them more flexible from a catcher usage standpoint, but that's not ideal, right? That's suboptimal at best.
It's just as sloppy as the notion that you're going to win baseball games with no defense.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I'm not gonna, I don't disagree with that at all. So, but that's just the latest example of, you look at the roster construction and you scratch your head about this for what this is supposed to be now, in contrast to what we thought it was going to be 3 years ago, right? We think about in 2023 when the Orioles were on their way to winning 101 games and having the best record in the American League, and thinking what it would look like 3 years down the road. The idea at that moment in time was, man, look how good they are, and the young core hasn't even fully arrived yet. And now 3 years later to be looking at what it's become, I mean, PU. And it's why, for me, it's really, really extremely difficult to really take this seriously and just say that Mike Elias is going to continue to get more opportunities when this thing has been botched as much as it's been the last couple of years. I mean, it's just
Last thing for you, because this is important, and we're heading into the week. Do you have anything on the Rubenstein thing? I mean, I know you don't love talking about the ownership side of this, but everything you just said is Elias, Elias,
yeah,
Elias, and I get the feeling when we really evaluate this, as I've done this for 35 years, the owner's everything. And
yeah,
I tried to explain that about Angelos, and that was the hope that this guy wouldn't
yeah.
be a goof. This guy's goofier than Angelos because Angelos lived here, ran around, blustered about. This guy runs around in the shadows and says things as a billionaire that get caught on tape, let alone Epstein, let alone whatever drilling he's doing in Alaska that's pissed off the people that protect the earth. But just what a kook this guy has come off as. You're going to write a book on sports ownership. He's got a bobblehead. I have zero confidence in these people. Like I've met Katie Griggs, I've met Mark Fine, I've met their emissaries, I've seen them give Elias a vote of confidence. I've seen him sit behind home plate looking like Mr. Magoo and then disappear to show up in DC and say he's embarrassed by the baseball team. Like just the silly things he says. How are they going to deal with this work stoppage and front face this while we're on the radio talking about Lamar maybe winning a Super Bowl?
I mean, look, the body of work speaks for itself, right? I mean, okay, have they spent more money than John Angelos did at the end? Yes. But
So's the guy at the Mets, right?
yeah, I mean, you can spend money, you can spend a lot. There have been plenty of teams in baseball that have spent a lot of money very foolishly and
The
got
road is
nothing for
littered.
it. Yeah. So, I mean, it comes down to this. Yes, I do speak about it in terms of Elias, because he's the head of baseball operations for this ball club and has been for 8 years now.
Only one thing's going to
But,
change that.
but who does he answer to ultimately? Ownership. And so if you have issues and if you have a vision that has short circuited, which this did, the rebuild worked for about 2 years and then it stopped working, right? I mean, there are processes that they had in place that seemed to work at one point in time, don't work
Yeah,
to the
Yankees
same
would have stopped
degree.
working if Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, and Mariano
Yeah,
Rivera
I mean,
stunk. You know,
right. I mean,
it's just where it's at.
so I look at this thing and yeah, the buck stops with ownership, right? If you're not going to have an ownership group that has the requisite discerning eye to at least say, okay, we don't know every detail, and Mike can tell us this, and Sig can tell us this, but what they're telling us is not translating to success. So at some point in time, it's one of two things, or more likely the combination of things. Either their process has kinks in the midst of it that is leading to failing to fully develop and, go through the list of various processes of building a roster, building a bullpen, all the different things that you need to be a good baseball team. So you're either having breakdowns there, or the original evaluation for players on which you were counting heavily ended up being a poor evaluation, and those players ended up just not being as good as you thought. Either way, that still goes back to the root of, we're not sure that the current regime is getting the job done. And then as ownership, you need to make a change, right? It's that simple. So if they're, if David Rubenstein's couldn't be more pleased in the way that he said that about Mike Elias at Kyle Bradish's contract extension press conference, what, a week before the trade deadline or 6 days before the trade deadline, whatever it was, then, I mean, okay, then Elias is going to stay in place. And I'm guessing a lot of these things aren't going to change. And we're going to continue to see a half-baked product that isn't horrendous, but isn't good enough. And being stuck in between is the worst place you can be. I've mentioned this, and I actually heard someone say this, some interview, where they were talking about the current state of the Orioles and where they are, where you look at them and you say, okay, they're not a heavyweight that spends like the Yankees do, yet they're not as good at Tampa as building and developing and doing things that way. They're kind of, the idea was they were supposed to be the best of both worlds in terms of the sweet spot, right? They were going to develop as well as Tampa, but be able to spend more money. And okay, they weren't going to spend quite as much money as the Yankees, but the Orioles were really like their secret sauce when it comes to development and all of that. So they don't have any advantage. Like, what is their identity? I've said
I am
they're shifting
fascinated
more.
to think about the money when they start bean counting, when Katie gets there and starts really bean counting, like what is coming in and what's going out, how they're going to react to that in the offseason. I'm
Sure,
interested in that.
sure. And obviously attendance being what it is, and attendance isn't getting better, and a lockout presumably is only going to hurt attendance, as I would expect it's going to just about anywhere other than maybe Dodger Stadium. But I mean, it's just it, there is a path for them getting this back on track. I think there's enough for them to get this back on track, but my confidence level in the current regime is just not there anymore. It's just not. And that doesn't mean they're going to make a change, especially when you consider the pending lockout and what that's going to mean and the challenges that would present for bringing in a new head of baseball operations. So that might buy Mike Elias an extra year. Some of these trades that have been made that have been well regarded. For the moves that he's made, when I look at them in isolation, he got good value for Adley Rutschman, but ultimately getting good value in trades and having a good minor league system is not the full job. That's not the full scope of the job. And when you look at the full scope of the job, which is ultimately being judged on wins at the major league level in a much different way than how he was judged in 2019, 20, and 21, then how can you look at this thing and say that you have confidence that this is?
They're in last place again,
Yeah,
by the way, right?
yeah,
I mean, like literally,
exactly.
they're going to finish in last place again.
So to put
how many
a
years
bow,
you finish in last place and piss away $150 million and have all your prospects fall apart to say, well, I made a good trade to get rid of our 1-1.
to get
Dude,
more
you lost 118 games getting that guy.
to get more prospects. well, the previous regime lost 118 to get Rutschman, but yes, your point's well taken. And but the thing is, you can say, okay, well, you've got a top 5 farm system again. It's like, okay, what'd you do with the last top 5 farm system? If I'm ownership, it'd be one of the first things I ask, and just I'd want to hear why is it going to be different this time? Seriously, why is it going to be different this time? And unless Mike Elias would have an uber specific, here are the things that we've identified that it broke down and caused this to happen. Here are the 5 things we're doing differently now. Unless you hear that kind of plan, and he's certainly not going to spell that out for anyone publicly, because he doesn't talk in those terms ever publicly. But if you're ownership, man, I better be hearing an incredible, extraordinary plan as far as what you're going to do differently to get results.
Well, it's also
Because,
you're selling that to your customers,
well, and
whatever
that's the
that
thing.
is, whatever that
I
is.
just, I don't know how you run it back in that way and get anyone excited about this team, especially coming out of what will be some form of a lockout, whether they end up getting lucky and it's just during the winter, or maybe just, bags a couple weeks of spring training, or if you have a COVID like season where they're not playing ball till June or July, right? The idea that you're going to stand pat and maintain the status quo with this front office. I mean, I just don't know how many. You'd have to spend a whole lot of money to get people remotely excited about the idea of Mike Elias and everyone in the front office staying in place after what's happened the last 2 years. I mean, I don't think I'm being unreasonable there. I think that's just calling a spade a spade. I mean, I don't know. Pete Alonso's been great, right? You and I haven't given enough oxygen to just how great and how as advertised Pete Alonso's been in every way, whether we're talking about his
Well,
production.
especially this time of the year when when the big yeah
Of course, he's waiting at his locker. He gets all the things that it takes to be a leader on the field and off. But Pete Alonso alone isn't selling tickets for you. I mean, it's just not the
he can't
case.
play
And
shortstop either, by the way.
so, I mean, it's
All
just
right, we've had enough of this. We got fake football to talk about. All
until
right,
they take
let's get
until they
serious.
take 2 or 3 this weekend, and then everyone's excited again because they're only a game out of the wild card. Because the American League wild card race is zombie baseball where no one's any good. So,
Can you put
just
on a few pounds the next few weeks and play center for us?
I don't think
Yeah.
anyone wants me at center.
Yeah, not even long snapper. He is Luke Jones. He's Baltimore Luke. We're going to be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour at Coco's. Even though I'm wearing my Faithly shirt, that's fine. We're Fishmonger's daughter this week. We love all the crab cake places around here because they're all locally owned businesses, and they're all supported by places like the Maryland Lottery, our partners at GBMC, as well as Farnan and Dermer. Putting us out on the road, I will have the Raven scratch-offs with the Kiss Face Bird at Coco's on Wednesday. If you haven't heard, I won Best of Baltimore. We've reinvented ourselves, even though you all hate it, because I've read about it on the internet. But at least there's millions of you that hate it these days instead of just dozens, and my mom listening. Appreciate everybody listening out at AM 1570. Follow along. We're about to start a football season with some promise. We're wrapping up a baseball season that we thought had promise. And I certainly have some promise with the Crab Cake Tour. I'm looking forward to getting Ron and Max out next week. We got some great guests coming on as we get into football season. I'm going to start tracking that thing for Indianapolis on September 13th. And in the meantime, Geddy Lee is 2 hours away this weekend. So is Alex Lifeson. So all is well in the world. The spirit of radio is alive. I am Nestor. He is Luke. We are WNST AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking. Baltimore positive.